The alien warship floated in the darkness of space, its massive metallic body reflecting the light of a distant sun. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The ship's commander, a tall, reptilian creature named Vroger, stood in front of a screen, watching the security footage from the prison bay. 7 humans sat in a cold, dark cell. Their hands were bound, their faces covered in dirt and sweat. Vroger's second-in-command, an insectoid officer named Killick, clicked his mandibles in frustration. "Commander, I do not understand. Why are we keeping them alive? They are just mechanics, not warriors. They are useless to us." Vroger narrowed his yellow eyes. "That is what worries me, Killick. These humans, they are too calm." Killick let out a low hiss. "Calm. They are trapped. They have no weapons, no tools. What can they do?" Before Vroger could answer, an alarm blared through the ship. A red warning light flashed across the control panels. "System malfunction detected in engine chamber 3, the ship's AI announced. Vroger's clawed fingers tightened. "That is impossible. Our security is perfect. What is happening?" Killick rushed to a control panel and checked the data. "Sir, someone has shut down the cooling system for that engine. If we don't fix it, the ship will overheat." Vroger's tail twitched in irritation. "Who did this?" Killick hesitated, then his mandibles clicked nervously. It happened from inside the ship, but no alien crew members were near engine chamber 3. Vroger's eyes darkened. His gaze turned back to the screen showing the human prisoners. No alien crew members, but humans were. In the cold prison cell, Ethan Kane leaned back against the wall. He was a senior mechanic, a man who had spent his life fixing broken machines and making them work better than before. He cracked his knuckles and looked at his team. 7 of them. Captured. Locked away like animals. The youngest in the group, Lucas, whispered, "Ethan, are you sure it worked?" Ethan gave a small smirk. "It worked." Lucas's face showed excitement. "How did you do it? We don't even have any tools." Ethan tapped the side of his head. "Tools are useful, but the real weapon is up here. The moment they brought us in, I memorized the security panels outside this cell. Every wire, every system. I noticed a weak point in their energy grid. So when they locked us up, I used my boot's metal tip to short-circuit the system from the inside." Lucas's eyes widened. "You did all that with just your boot?" Ethan chuckled. "Son, give a mechanic a single wire, and he'll build a spaceship." The others laughed softly, but the moment was short-lived. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. The aliens were coming. Vroger marched into the prison bay with 4 guards behind him. His golden armor reflected the red emergency lights. He stepped up to the force field barrier, his sharp eyes scanning the humans inside. "Which one of you did it?" he growled. Ethan tilted his head. "Did what?" Vroger slammed a fist against the barrier, making a deep thud. "Do not play games with me, human. Someone sabotaged my ship. That means someone here has been working against us." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe your ship is just poorly built." Killick hissed in rage, but Vroger raised a hand to stop him. He watched Ethan carefully. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. "You are the leader, aren't you?" Ethan didn't answer, but his silence was enough. Vroger turned to his guards. "Take this one." 2 massive aliens entered the cell and grabbed Ethan by the arms. He didn't resist. There was no point in fighting now. They dragged him out, and the last thing he saw before the door shut was Lucas's worried face. The interrogation room was cold and dimly lit. Ethan sat in a metal chair, his hands chained to the table. Across from him, Vroger paced back and forth. "You humans are stubborn," Vroger muttered, "but stubbornness will not save you." Ethan sighed. "Look, if you brought me here for some friendly chat, I'd prefer a cup of coffee." Vroger slammed his fist onto the table. "Your jokes will not help you. Tell me how you sabotaged my ship." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "And if I don't?" Vroger grinned, showing sharp teeth. Then I will make your team suffer. Ethan's expression didn't change, but deep inside, he felt anger rising. These aliens thought they had control. They thought humans were weak. They had no idea what was coming. Vroger leaned in closer. You have one last chance, human. Tell me the truth. Ethan smirked. All right, fine. The truth. He leaned forward and whispered, You took human mechanics prisoner. Are you out of your mind? Before Vroger could react, the ship trembled violently. The lights flickered. A voice from the ship's AI crackled through the speakers. Warning, reactor core unstable. Vroger spun around. What? Ethan chuckled. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. My team. They're not just mechanics. They're problem solvers. And right now, they're solving a really big problem. You. Vroger's eyes widened as the realization hit him. The humans weren't prisoners anymore. They were in control. In the prison bay, Lucas and the others worked fast. Using the small tools they had hidden in their clothing, they had rewired the security system. One by one, the force field barrier shut down. Lucas grinned. Time to break out. The humans ran into the hallway, taking down the few alien guards who tried to stop them. They moved quickly, heading toward the engineering bay. They had one mission: take over the ship. And with Ethan distracting the commander, they had just the time they needed. Vroger grabbed Ethan by the collar. What did you do? Ethan grinned. You should really upgrade your security systems. The door to the interrogation room burst open. Killick stumbled in, panicked. Sir, the prisoners. They've escaped. They're headed for engineering. Vroger roared in frustration. He shoved Ethan back into the chair and turned to Killick. Stop them. Kill them if you have to. But deep inside, Vroger knew it was too late. The humans had already won. The alarm screamed through the alien warship as chaos erupted in every corridor. Lucas and the rest of the human mechanics ran through the dimly lit passageways, their breaths heavy but their minds sharp. They had spent their lives working on machines, fixing what others thought was broken. Now they were doing the same thing, but this time with an entire alien ship. Behind them, the heavy stomping of alien boots echoed. The guards were in pursuit, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Lucas ducked behind a corner, signaling the others to stop. They're coming, he whispered. Alyssa, the team's most experienced systems engineer, quickly accessed a nearby control panel. Her fingers danced over the unfamiliar interface, rewiring the ship's security locks. Give me 10 seconds, she muttered. Lucas risked a glance down the corridor. The aliens were fast, their armor clanking as they moved. He gritted his teeth. They wouldn't last in a fight, not against trained warriors with superior weapons. They had to rely on what they did best. Now, Alyssa whispered. Lucas slammed his palm against the emergency panel. With a loud hiss, the bulkhead doors behind them slammed shut, trapping the pursuing guards on the other side. A loud banging came from the door as the aliens pounded against it. A deep voice shouted orders in an alien tongue. Lucas let out a breath. That buys us a little time. Alyssa smirked. A little time is all we need. They continued moving, their destination clear. The ship's engineering bay. In the interrogation room, Vroger paced back and forth, his golden armor clinking as he moved. Ethan sat calmly in the chair, watching the alien commander with an amused expression. You are running out of time, Vroger, Ethan said. The alien's yellow eyes burned with anger. You humans are nothing. Your kind are builders, workers, not warriors. Ethan tilted his head. That's what you think. Vroger snarled. You cannot fight. You have no weapons. Ethan leaned back. Weapons? Who needs weapons when we have your entire ship to play with? At that moment, the lights flickered again. A deep, ominous hum filled the air. Vroger's communicator crackled with panic. Commander, the humans. They have entered the engineering bay. Vroger's claws tightened. What? Ethan chuckled. Told you. Vroger grabbed Ethan by the collar and yanked him forward. Your people will fail. My soldiers will crush them. Ethan met his gaze without fear. Your soldiers don't even know what they're fighting. This isn't a battle, Vroger. It's a repair job. And we're the best damn mechanics in the galaxy. Inside the engineering bay, Lucas and his team moved fast. The alien technology was advanced, but to a mechanic, everything followed the same principles. Wires, power sources, energy flow. It didn't matter if it was human-made or alien. It could be controlled. Alyssa pointed to a massive energy core in the center of the room. That's their main power source. Lucas nodded. We take that. We take the ship. A heavy blast shook the room as the bulkhead door behind them exploded. Alien soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Move, Lucas shouted. The team scattered as energy bolts flew past them, hitting the walls and sending sparks flying. Lucas dove behind a console, his mind racing. They had no weapons, no armor, but they had something better. He looked at the wires running along the ceiling, connecting the core to the rest of the ship. An idea sparked in his mind. Jenkins, can you overload the power relays? Jenkins, a short but brilliant engineer, grinned. Give me 30 seconds. Lucas took a deep breath and stood up. The alien spotted him and fired. He ducked just in time, the heat of the blast burning the air near his face. Faster, Jenkins. Jenkins' fingers flew over the control panel. The lights flickered violently. The ship rumbled. The alien commander's voice blared through the ship's speakers. Stop them. Do not let them. The ship suddenly lurched sideways, throwing everyone off balance. The aliens crashed to the ground, their weapons sliding away. Sparks burst from the walls as systems overloaded. Lucas grinned. We're in business. Jenkins whooped. Main power is ours. They won't be flying this ship anywhere without us. Alyssa grabbed a communicator from a fallen alien soldier. She adjusted the frequency and spoke into it. Ethan, do you read me? A moment of silence. Then Ethan's voice came through, amused as ever. Loud and clear, kid. How's the ship? Lucas grabbed the communicator. We just took their engines offline. They're not going anywhere. Ethan's chuckle came through. Beautiful work. Now, let's make these aliens regret ever taking us. In the control room, Vroger's claws dug into the table as he watched his ship shut down around him. The humans had done the impossible. He turned to Killick, his voice shaking with rage. Get me every soldier on this ship. Hunt them down. Killick hesitated. Sir, they have control of the engines. If they access navigation. Vroger froze. A chilling realization dawned on him. These humans weren't just escaping. They were taking the whole damned ship. The alien warship drifted in the cold void of space, its once powerful systems now under siege from the very prisoners it had captured. Vroger clenched his fists as he stormed toward the bridge, his soldiers scrambling to keep up. His ship, his pride, was slipping from his grasp, and it was because of a handful of unarmed humans. This was impossible. This was unacceptable. Lucas and his team worked fast, moving between the control panels in the engineering bay, rewiring the ship's power systems to their advantage. Every flickering light, every sudden jolt of energy in the ship was a sign that they were winning. The mechanics weren't just fixing things. They were taking control, turning the alien warship into their own battlefield. The sound of boots stomping in the hallway sent a wave of urgency through the team. The aliens were regrouping. They wouldn't sit back and let this happen. Jenkins gritted his teeth as he pried open a maintenance panel, sparks flying from the exposed wires. We don't have much time, he muttered. If they figure out what we're doing. They won't, Lucas interrupted, his voice firm. He wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers moving with precision over the unfamiliar controls. We're mechanics. They have no idea how we think. Alyssa's eyes flicked to a nearby screen showing the ship's security feed. Armed aliens were closing in fast, their weapons charged and ready. She turned to Lucas. "We have to move." Lucas nodded. "Jenkins, reroute power to the backup thrusters. We need to make this ship move." Jenkins hesitated. "If I do that, they'll know we're flying this thing." Lucas smirked. "Good. Let them know." In the interrogation room, Ethan felt the entire ship shift beneath him. The alien guards around him stumbled, their expressions flashing with confusion. He chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, you boys have no idea what's coming." Before the guards could react, the door to the room slid open with a hiss. Two humans in stolen alien armor stepped inside, their weapons raised. One of them pulled off their helmet, revealing a wide grin. "Time to go, boss." Ethan stretched his arms, standing up. "Took you long enough." He stepped over the unconscious guard at his feet and grabbed the alien's communicator. He pressed the button, his voice echoing through the ship's speakers. "Vroger, buddy, I hope you're listening." On the bridge, Vroger whipped around at the sound of the human's voice. His claws curled into the armrests of his chair. "You made a big mistake taking human mechanics," Ethan continued, his tone playful but laced with warning. "Because now, we're about to show you what happens when you put us in the heart of your ship." As soon as the words left his mouth, the ship's lights dimmed, and then, with a sudden, violent force, the warship lurched forward. The stars outside the massive windows blurred as the engines roared to life. The crew on the bridge scrambled to regain control, but nothing was responding. The humans weren't just loose. They were flying the damned ship. Vroger slammed his fist on the console. "Stop them. Shut it all down." "Sir, they've locked us out of the main systems," a panicked officer yelled. "They're controlling the engines, navigation, everything." Vroger's vision darkened with rage. "Then we take them down by force." Down in the engineering bay, Lucas and the others braced themselves as the ship accelerated. Alyssa grinned as she tapped the controls. "We just took command of the navigation. Where do you want to go?" Lucas cracked his knuckles. "Somewhere far from here." Jenkins whooped. "We just stole an alien warship. I don't think anyone's ever done that before." Alyssa smirked. "There's a first time for everything." Suddenly, the sound of metal scraping against metal echoed through the bay. Lucas turned just in time to see the bulkhead door slide open. Alien soldiers poured in, their weapons raised, their eyes burning with fury. Lucas exhaled. And here comes the hard part. Blasts of energy filled the air as the battle for control of the ship truly began. The warship trembled as explosions echoed through its corridors. Lucas ducked behind a control panel, gripping his stolen alien weapon tightly. The air smelled of burning wires and smoke, and the once sterile engineering bay had become a battleground. The aliens had finally launched their counterattack, storming in with full force. Their mistake was assuming that a group of mechanics wouldn't know how to fight back. Jenkins fired a burst of plasma at an advancing soldier, hitting him square in the chest. The alien crumpled to the ground with a grunt, his weapon clattering against the floor. "They're not stopping," Jenkins shouted over the noise. Lucas peeked over his cover, spotting more enemy reinforcements pouring in through the side entrance. He clenched his jaw. They needed to turn the tide before they got overwhelmed. His eyes flicked to Alyssa, who was working furiously on the control panel. "How much longer?" he called out. "Almost there," she yelled back. "Just a few more seconds and—" A shot whizzed past her head, forcing her to duck. Ethan, now armed and free, charged into the fight, his movements sharp and precise. He was no stranger to combat, and he used the chaos to his advantage, dodging enemy fire and landing brutal hits. One alien lunged at him, claws extended, but Ethan sidestepped and slammed the butt of his weapon into the alien's skull. The creature dropped instantly. Lucas's mind raced. They couldn't hold their position forever. He glanced at the exposed power conduit running along the wall, and suddenly had an idea. "Jenkins, shoot that conduit," he ordered. Jenkins hesitated only for a second before nodding. He took aim and fired. The shot struck home, and the conduit exploded in a shower of sparks. The lights flickered violently, and the gravity on the ship momentarily fluctuated. The aliens staggered as their footing became unstable. Lucas seized the moment. "Alyssa, now." With a final keystroke, Alyssa grinned. "Got it." The ship lurched as the engines roared at full power. Outside, the massive warship veered off course, speeding away from its original trajectory. The alien soldiers hesitated, their eyes widening in shock. Their ship was no longer under their control. Vroger, watching from the bridge, slammed his fist against the console. "They're steering us away from the fleet." His second-in-command looked at him with barely contained fear. "Sir, if we don't stop them, we'll be lost in deep space." Vroger growled, his anger boiling over. "Then we stop them now." Back in engineering, the remaining alien soldiers were retreating, realizing they were fighting a losing battle. Lucas stood tall, breathing heavily as the last of them disappeared into the corridors. He looked at his team, his people. Ethan chuckled, wiping sweat from his forehead. "So, what now? We just stole an alien warship. What's our next move?" Lucas smirked. "Simple. We make sure they never get it back." The stolen ship sped into the darkness of space, leaving chaos and a furious alien commander in its wake. The warship streaked through space, its course now fully in human hands. Lucas stood in the dimly lit control room, studying the alien navigation system. The symbols were unfamiliar, but their meaning was becoming clearer by the second. Alyssa worked beside him, her fingers moving swiftly over the glowing interface. Every alarm in the ship was blaring, but Lucas wasn't worried. The aliens were losing control, and they knew it. Jenkins sat on the floor, inspecting a deep cut on his arm. "Remind me again," he muttered, wincing as he tightened a bandage, "why we decided to fight a whole alien army with nothing but stolen tools and quick thinking." Ethan chuckled, standing by the door with his rifle at the ready. "Because they made the mistake of thinking we were helpless." Lucas smirked. "And now we show them just how wrong they were." Vroger was furious. On the bridge, his officers scrambled to override the ship's controls, but nothing was responding. The humans had locked them out of every major system. The mighty warship was now their prison, and the worst part was that no one in the fleet could help them. Communication was down. The fleet was already moving ahead, and they were drifting off course. Far, far away from any hope of reinforcements. A junior officer trembled as he approached. "Sir, they've rerouted auxiliary power. They have full control of engines, weapons, everything." Vroger snarled. His claws scraped against the armrest of his chair. "Then we take it back." The ship's internal speakers crackled to life, and Ethan's voice echoed through every corridor. "Attention, passengers of this fine warship. We regret to inform you that your captain is currently unavailable. In his absence, we'll be making a few adjustments to our journey." Lucas grabbed the speaker controls and took over. "Here's the deal, Vroger. You let our people go. We don't vent you and your crew into space. Sound fair?" There was silence. Then a low growl came through the comms. "You dare threaten me on my own ship?" Lucas shrugged. "Not a threat. Just a friendly reminder that we're mechanics, and mechanics always know how to shut things down." He reached out and flipped a switch. The lights dimmed across the ship, emergency systems kicking in. "Oops. There goes life support." The bridge filled with alarmed chatter. Vroger bared his teeth, knowing he was trapped. His soldiers were strong, trained for war, but they had never fought enemies who used the ship itself as a weapon against them. Down in engineering, Alyssa grinned. "You think he's scared yet?" Ethan smirked. "Not yet, but he will be." Jenkins pulled up a map of the ship. "They're regrouping near the armory. If they get their heavy weapons, they might try to retake the bridge." Lucas exhaled. Then we stop them before they get the chance. The ship hummed as the human mechanics worked in perfect sync. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were winning. Vroger's patience was gone. His claws tapped against the armrest of his chair as he stared at the flickering lights of his warship. He could feel the shift of power, and it enraged him. This ship was the pride of his fleet, unstoppable, unbeatable. Yet now, it was at the mercy of a few human mechanics. He bared his teeth in frustration. "Enough of this," he growled. "They may control the systems, but we control the numbers." His second-in-command hesitated. "Sir, they locked us out of most systems. We can't reach the armory, and we can't send reinforcements through the locked corridors." Vroger's eyes burned with fury. "Then we go the old way. Gather the remaining soldiers. We take this ship back with claws and steel." Down in engineering, Lucas was already preparing for the inevitable. He watched the internal cameras as a large group of aliens began moving towards their position. His stomach tightened. They were outnumbered, and despite their clever tactics, brute force could still overwhelm them. "They're coming," Alyssa said, her voice calm but tense. "They know we've got them trapped, but they won't stop. They'd rather die than surrender." Jenkins adjusted his grip on his weapon. "Good. That makes two of us." Lucas exhaled, scanning the room. They couldn't hold out forever, not like this. But they didn't need to. They just needed to tip the balance once more. His eyes flicked to the emergency bulkhead controls. A crazy idea formed in his head. "We don't have to fight them head-on," he said. "We lure them." Ethan smirked. "I like where this is going." Lucas tapped the control panel, forcing certain doors to unlock while sealing others. The aliens would have no choice but to follow a specific path, one that would lead them straight into an ambush. The ship trembled as heavy footsteps echoed through the halls. The enemy was close now. Alyssa wiped sweat from her brow. "If this doesn't work..." Lucas cut her off. "It will." The first group of aliens stormed through the open corridor, weapons drawn, snarling with rage. They expected an easy fight. Instead, the floor beneath them jolted with a sudden burst of energy. The gravity shifted violently, sending them crashing into the walls. Sparks rained down from above as the humans triggered a hidden power surge, overloading the ship's systems in just the right spots. Ethan and Jenkins struck first, taking down the disoriented aliens with precise shots. More followed, but by then, the humans had already disappeared into the next section, leading the invaders deeper into their trap. Vroger watched through a security feed, his jaw tightening. His elite warriors were stumbling, disorganized. His warship had become a maze, one that obeyed only the humans now. Lucas's voice crackled through the speakers once again. "Not so fun when the ship doesn't listen to you." Vroger roared, slamming his fist against the console. But deep down, a chilling realization was settling in. He was losing control. Vroger's rage boiled over as the ship's systems twisted against him. Every step his warriors took led them into another trap. Sealed doors, sudden gravity shifts, and power surges that sent them sprawling. His warship, the pride of his fleet, had turned into a battlefield where the humans controlled every move. Lucas stood in the heart of the ship, watching the cameras with an intense focus. "They're desperate," he said. "This is their last push." Alyssa nodded, fingers flying across the console. "They're trying to break through the engineering sector. If they reach the core, they might override our controls." Jenkins adjusted his grip on his weapon. "Then we don't let them." Ethan grinned. "I say we give them a proper send-off." Lucas activated the final part of his plan. The ship's emergency evacuation system roared to life. Suddenly, red warning lights flashed across the alien-controlled sections. Vroger's eyes widened as the ship's AI announced, "Emergency purge activated. All unauthorized personnel in restricted sections will be removed." "No," he snarled, his claws digging into the console. He turned to his officers. "Override it. Now." His second-in-command frantically worked the controls. "I can't. They've locked us out of everything. Throughout the ship, doors slammed shut. The vents opened, creating a violent force of suction. The air rushed out, dragging unprepared alien soldiers towards the emergency purge zones. Some grabbed onto the walls, screaming in their guttural language, but it was no use. Lucas watched with a grim expression as the ship ejected them into space. That should do it. Inside the bridge, Vroger and his last few officers were spared, barely. The humans had disabled the purge sequence before it reached them, but now they were truly alone. The comms crackled, and Lucas's voice came through, calm but firm. "That's checkmate." Vroger's claws trembled. He had lost. The mightiest warship of his people now belonged to the humans. He could still fight, but for what? His soldiers were gone, his weapons were useless, and the humans had turned his own ship into their stronghold. He growled lowly. "What do you want?" Lucas exchanged a glance with Alyssa before responding. "Simple. You're going to tell your fleet that you were captured, that this war is over. And then you're going to sit there and think about the mistake you made." Vroger clenched his fists but said nothing. He had no choice. The ship, now fully under human control, turned its course. The stars stretched before them as Lucas leaned back, exhaling. They had done the impossible, not just survived but won. Jenkins let out a breathless laugh. "So, what now?" Ethan grinned. "Now, we go home."